Source NAT. Okay everyone, in this video we're going to take a look at how to configure Source NAT on our Palo Alto firewall. The reason why you want to do Source NAT is that you have your source address. In our case, if you can take a look here at our slide, we have a client that is sitting on the 172.16.10 network. He needs to reach a web server that is on a site-to-site tunnel. So you have a site-to-site tunnel peering with a vendor that they have an application hosted on their data center, and they told you that you need to peer via a IPsec tunnel between your firewall and their firewall, and the web server that your clients or your employees will need to reach is on the 10.20.10 network. But the vendor told you we cannot allow IPs that does not fall on the 10.200.100 address space. This is the address space that I gave you so you can send your traffic and your request. You cannot send me your native IP. I am going to drop that on my firewall. And this is where Source NAT comes into place. With Source NAT, we can basically grab this source address and convert that to a translated address, convert that to an address that is allowed to go over the site-to-site tunnel. So you have 172.16.10. Once it passes the firewall and the Palo Alto does the Source NAT translation, it changes the source IP to be 10.20.120. In this case, then it's allowed and you can reach your application, in this case the 10.20.10.10 web server. Another very common example is the internet. Your machine is sitting on a private address. You know that private addresses are not routable on the outside. You need to convert that private address into a publicly routable address. In this case, your outside interface will be sitting on the ISP network, and your source address will be translated to that external interface address. This is the most common use for Source NAT, and we're going to take a look at how to configure it on the Palo Alto firewall. Alrighty, so let's get started. Let's do a Source NAT, and I'm going to basically configure the common, inside to outside Source NAT. This is the case if you have your internal private network, you want to reach the internet or your public circuits, you need to translate your private address into your outside address. Or if you have a public IP block or a prefix that was assigned to your circuit by your ISP, you can do an IP NAT pool and then add those public IPs there, and you can translate your inside clients to the outside using those public IPs. So let's begin and let's configure Source NAT. In our demonstration, we're going to have the DMC zone. We have a server on the DMC that needs to talk to the outside world, in this case the internet. The server is sitting on the 10.100.00/24 network, but as we all know, this network is not routable to the internet. I cannot reach the internet natively using this IP because it's a private address. So we need to translate that to the outside interface IP, which is a very common scenario where you want to translate your inside network to the outside interface IP, in this case your public IP. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this demonstration, and we also will be configuring the security rule, and we'll do a ping test to make sure that we're able to reach the internet. And this will be tested before and after, so you can definitely tell that the rule is taking place. Okay, so let's begin. Let me, first of all, I'm going to show you that I have a machine that it's trying to ping 1.1.1.1. It's one of those public DNS servers that you can point your machine to. So right now, my machine, it's sitting on the DMC network, which is the 10.100.0, and my machine's local IP, it's .100. If I want to ping my gateway, is .1. The gateway is on my DMC interface in the Palo Alto firewall. So let's take a look at that DMC interface. Go ahead in the Palo Alto, and we're going to go to Network, Interfaces, and right here, you see that 10.100.0.1, it's my default gateway, and I have my test machine sitting on the .100. I am trying to ping an outside address, and I'm not able to. Let's give it a shot so you can see that I am not able to go outside. The reason why, like I mentioned earlier, my IP is private. I cannot route using that as my native IP if I want to go to the internet because it's a private address. So let's fix that. Let's first of all configure the Source NAT. In order for you to configure the Source NAT, you're going to go to Policies, NAT, And this is where we're going to configure that NAT policy. Let's call this DMC to outside NAT. And we're going to say the original packet will come from the DMC. That's my source zone. And my machine comes from the DMC. This will be my source. I want to go to the outside. That's my destination zone. Destination interface will be Ethernet 1/1. This is my internet interface. This is the interface where I have that public circuit connected to. And then my source address. We want to allocate DMC network. If you have multiple networks and not all of them, you want them to route to the outside, you want to make sure that you don't select any and you specify which source addresses are allowed to hit this NAT rule. In this demonstration, because we only have one network, I'm just going to leave it as any. And obviously, we want to leave this as any for the outside because you don't know where you're going to the internet, millions of addresses, so you just leave that as any. Translated packet, this is where the magic happens. Let's go ahead and source address translations because we're doing a source NAT. We're going to select the type of translation. We have dynamic IP import, and this is the IP, the same source address IP. But you can keep having TCP sessions using that same source address. You also have a dynamic IP, so this is, you have an IP pool and you have multiple IPs on that outside IP. And let me bring the notepad so I can explain a little bit on that. Say your ISP, let's put this as a 30 address. So your ISP gave you 40.30.150.0/24. So you have 252 usable hosts there, right? And you want to make sure that you can use all of them to go out. Maybe you don't want to, and I would not, this is a waste of public IPs. I would rather have like a range of 1 through 10. So in that case, I'm just gonna create an IP pool of 150.1 to 40.30.150.10. So I am actually allocating from 1 to 10. All those IPs are going to be used to translate my inside to my outside. So that's when you want to have a dynamic IP pool. That's one way to take advantage of that translation type. In our case, we're just going to do a dynamic IP import. Let's go ahead and change that to be from the translated. So this is where you can select a range of IPs or a specific IP that you want your customers to be translated from or your clients. In our case, we just want to translate using the interface address. And obviously we got to select our interface, and this is the outgoing interface. Remember, this is the interface that I'm going to leave the zone. So I'm going to go to the internet via this interface, which is 1/1. IP address, I am not going to select any IP address here. And the reason why, because I am selecting the interface, I'm just going to use the default interface IP. So whatever is the assigned interface IP, I'm just going to use that to go out. We're going to press OK. And there you have it. So we have a NAT rule. Anything that comes from the source of the DMZ going to the outside is going to be translated using the destination interface of Ethernet 1/1. So this is the first port on the Palo Alto. And my source address, my destination address will be anything incoming from the DMZ going to anything on the outside will be translated using the dynamic IP import of Ethernet 1/1. Okay, so that's step one. We just did our source NAT. And in order for us to have reachability, we have to configure, obviously, the routing statement. So we have those two zones allocated into the iNet router, the virtual router. And if you saw our previous video, we discussed routing context, and we configure that iNet router. So let's take advantage of that one. Let me go ahead and go to network, virtual routers. We're going to select iNet. And then inside iNet, I need to set my static route so I can tell the Palo Alto, hey, if I want to go to an unknown destination on my default route, my send it via interface Ethernet 1/1. So I'm going to say outside route, and it's going to be 0000 via 1/1. My next hop will be my outgoing default gateway or my outgoing router on this network. In this case, my outgoing router will be 20.1. We'll press OK here. We'll press commit. And I'm doing this on purpose because we're still missing something. And this is a common thing when someone configures a NAT rule. He forgets something very, very essential. And I'm going to leave you to think what we're missing. Okay, so I got the route, I got the NAT statement. What do you think that I'm missing to make this a pingable destination? Well, if you mention security policy, you are absolutely correct. We need to configure security policy to allow that DMC network to reach the outside network. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. And we should be able to see this starting to ping. So let's go ahead back to policies, security. And you can see I don't have my source zone from the DMC going to the outside. I don't have a rule for that. So let's create that and let's allow that traffic to go through. DMC to outside. My source, I am incoming from the DMC. And I'm going to leave this in any for now. Destination, outside, any destination address. Application, we're going to leave this in any. Application default, we can leave this in default. Action, you want to make sure that you're allowed and logged at the session end so you can get some monitoring going on. We'll press OK and watch while magic happens. We're going to press commit and I'm going to bring the console session so you can see while it's committing how we start pinging. So let me bring this back up and watch while we're committing. You should start seeing this replying pretty quick. And there you go. Now that has committed, we know now that our private IP, the 10.100.0.100, is being translated using the outside interface. So now we should be able to reach the outside network. So you make sure that you have all the policies, not just the NAT. The NAT is just to do the translation and have the proper routing statements and proper security policies, and you should be good to go. If you want to make sure that that NAT statement is actually working, let's go to NAT and we should see a hit count incrementing. As I ping the outside, every ping will be a hit count. So let's go ahead and refresh and I should be seeing that incrementing. That's a very good sign that the NAT policy is taking effect. Let's go to security policies and we should be able to see a hit count also for that rule that I just created, which is DMC to outside. And you can see the hit count. Let's click refresh. And there you go, it's incrementing. Alrighty, so that is a Source NAT. Okay everyone, so we just finished our Source NAT section. In the next video, we're gonna begin section 5 and we will discuss next generation firewall features. Thank you for watching.